What's happening, everybody? This is Locked On SEC. On today's show, we are going to talk with our buddy Chris Marler from the College Football Uncensored podcast. We'll talk some SEC headlines with him. We'll look ahead to the games this week in SEC Week 9, and I think we'll take a little peek ahead at Week 10 as well with some monster games coming up. Locked On SEC starts right now.
Are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. Great to have you guys along. We'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. Let's jump into it as we do this time every week. We welcome in our buddy Chris Marler from the College Football Uncensored podcast. Marler, how the hell are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's been a weird week, but it's been good. I know you've been traveling nonstop. So, but yeah, it's in that weird time because it's like when like October, November is about to happen and we get Maction back in like a week. So it's like the best time of football, but it's also rapidly approaching an end and we have all these bye weeks, which sucks.
Yeah, we're going to get to it in a little bit, but we're already facing next week is potentially the SEC East championship and the SEC West championship. Maybe. Yeah, we could maybe if Ole Miss wins this week and Bama beats LSU, maybe the Ole Miss Bama game is to decide the SEC West. I don't know. There's still a lot to be decided here.
Yeah.
Bama's got some tough games for a change. So, let's see.
Don't even start. Hold on. I got to say this. This is cracking me up because I know, like, I just keep thinking I'm just dumb enough and like wear it on my sleeve. So I know that, like, there's not a single person in this country that will ever feel bad for Bama and shouldn't, unless it has something to do with obesity rates and education levels. But like the football team, no one ever will. But it cracks me up, this whole narrative of like, they don't play anybody. They have like one of the toughest schedules in the country right now. They get all the calls. They did get all the calls this weekend. That was stupid. Yeah, that was all. Like, real quick, let me just say this on this while I'm on this like little mini soapbox. If you're in the SEC, I thought that whole thing with the Tennessee game where Bama had 17 penalties, Tennessee had 4, and Tennessee came in as like the most penalized team in the conference. I thought that was agreed. Like there were some calls in there that were egregiously missed, and I know that no one's gonna feel bad for them. But you know what the correct thing to do is the following week? It's not to penalize Mississippi State and then pretend that Bama all of a sudden got all their problems fixed with penalties, and they had 3 penalties. That's the least amount of penalties they've had in an SEC game in 4 years. And you're going to say that, like, oh, they got it all worked out a week later. I just thought that was so stupid and so bad from the SEC.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. If they get all the calls in Baton Rouge next week, there will be a very strongly written letter by LSU fans. Office in Birmingham. Let's get to a couple of headlines here, Marler, as we kind of get ready for SEC Week 9. I want to start here. Georgia safety Dan Jackson reportedly out for the season, sustained a stress fracture. He's played in 7 games this year, 16 tackles, and a reception, a forced fumble. It's a little bit of a depth loss for the Georgia defense, and they're going to gear up for Florida this weekend. But in a bigger picture, doesn't it feel like Florida or Georgia's really going through the injury bug this year on defense?
Yeah, a little bit. I think a lot of that's because Jalen Carter probably counts for 3 injuries on most teams, just because of how much of an impact that kind of kid is. This is something they've really gone through for 2 years in a row. They did it on offense last year, but it was for the entire season. So it kind of like those injuries didn't really rear their ugly head as much, because with the way the season set up, it's like you kind of got Ladd McConkey, you got Brock Bowers, and these like freshmen that you didn't think would be a huge impact. You got them to become seasoned vets by the end of the year. Not seeing that as much this year. I don't think that, like, there's not a better place for this injury to have occurred in terms of like a unit on this team, because you have Kirby Smart, who rotates guys so well and does an incredible job at getting guys ready. Probably better than any other coach in the country, and has for the last several years on that defense. And also him being a DB, like, I mean, hell, Kirby might just, I'm trying to not say the F word. He might just fricking strap on a helmet and go out there and play himself. I think he can still do it.
Yeah, and look, they're at an interesting spot here with Florida. That's and we'll talk about the game in a little bit, but this and then the Tennessee game coming up. which team is more focused on the game next week? This week, is it Georgia? Is it Tennessee? Tennessee's got a tough one with Kentucky, Florida or Georgia playing Florida. It's just going to be funny to see like which team is less focused this week because they're thinking ahead to next week. It'll be an interesting night.
Are you asking me that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of saying it out loud. But okay, like who has a lackluster performance, or who would you be more or less surprised by having a lackluster performance? Tennessee playing a close game with Kentucky, or Georgia playing a close game with Florida?
So I would say Tennessee. I'd be more surprised by Georgia having the lackluster performance, just because, like, if the stuff that Tennessee's doing, it all kind of involves everyone being on the same page and being able to click. And that defense is not bad, but it's also, they're going to give up. I mean, you saw it last year. Like, they're going to give up some points to Kentucky. It was like a 45-42 game a year ago. I mean, there's going to be moments they decide. I think just from the outside looking in, one thing you can always count on, it doesn't matter how good either team is or who's coming up next, the hatred that Georgia has for Florida is unmatched. It is unmatched maybe by any other rivalry that maybe other than the Egg Bowl. I mean, they hate Florida, and Kirby hates them especially. So I think that they'll be fine being able to refocus. I kind of feel like Tennessee doing the blackout jersey kind of makes me feel like they're searching for something to keep them motivated and not overlooking this team.
That was going to be one of my points later. I was going to ask if you're excited. Tennessee fans getting dark mode, the black jerseys, orange numbers. Are you a fan?
Yeah. I am with the black helmet. That uniform is legit. The one they did with like the white helmet looked awful. I mean, that looked awful. Yeah. But this is awesome. A little Halloween theme. I like that.
Yeah, they did the Grays a couple weeks ago and the win at LSU. Speaking of LSU, Brian Kelly has been named the Dodd Trophy Coach of the Week following their big win over Ole Miss. What's so weird to me, Marler, is I went back to listen to some of our guests we had on at SEC Media Days and some of the podcasts coming into the season. And
yeah,
I mean, there was literal conversation about LSU going 6-6 this year. And I kept going.
I had him last in the division.
I kept going like, wait, Brian Kelly's a good coach. Like, are we missing? Like, I know the roster's in flux, but he's still a damn good coach. Thoughts on Brian Kelly and where he is right now?
Doing a great job. And listen, I feel so dumb now because great picture as always. Look how skinny he looks in that picture. He also, if you're watching this on YouTube,
you going, this dumbass had us last.
That's the idiot that asked me that question about my accent. He does also kind of look like a Halloween yard decoration, like a bad Scream drawing. So I had them last, and I remember like getting to the bottom of my division picks, and I was like, LSU last. That doesn't seem right. Like, but I for whatever reason decided to be high on Auburn, like to finish fourth or something stupid. Which I to this day is like one of the biggest regrets I've ever had. Brian Kelly is a great coach. I don't think a lot of people understood that because, coming into the season, everyone like the whole thing about Brian Kelly and like where people thought about him was like, oh, he can't win the big one. Look what he did at Notre Dame and how he got like boat race and like the national championship. That like Brian Kelly's entire resume in terms like of how SEC fans held him like in like regard was just the 2012 national championship.
Right.
And then what happened in the and for real. And think about how stupid that is. Like, think about how dumb that like.
Well, it's the only time a lot of SEC fans were tuning into Notre Dame versus Navy. Like, they weren't tuning into regular season games. So like that was Stadium. The only thing a lot of SEC fans had to go on.
Right. And he's, I mean, I think coming into this year, he has like the most career wins like out of any head coach, and he's a phenomenal head coach. And the biggest thing he's done at LSU is he's instilled stuff with this program that has not been there in a long time. Because like the thing with Coach O was like this beat my chest, like bravado, like macho. We're gonna go out there and kick your ass, like. And this is more like we're gonna do stuff the right way. Yeah, we're gonna do stuff the right way. We're gonna finish games strong. We're gonna and you've seen it in the fourth quarter. You've seen it in the second half. You saw it last week against Ole Miss. Brian Kelly's been awesome, man. He's been awesome. And if you would have asked me before the season, I would have told you like I don't know how he wins a championship with Nick Saban and that. But I don't. After just the stuff I've seen lately with Saban, I don't know how much longer he's got.
LSU 6-2. They got UAB, so I think they'll win that one. That's 7 wins. So Alabama at Arkansas and at A&M. What do they do in that mix? I mean, it could go from you lose all 3, 7-5. Okay, pretty good start.
That's not going to happen.
Win one of those, 8-4. You win 2 of those. Just saying, like, what's going to stink about this for LSU fans?
Expectations.
Well, no, you're going to look back on that Florida State game and go, if we just made the damn extra point, we win in overtime, and it's a really special season. You're talking about, the loss of Tennessee and whatever else. But anyway, I digress. We'll see what happens with them. A couple other headlines. Texas A&M, things are not going well. This report, to say the least. Billy Lucci from Texags says that A&M has reportedly suspended 3 freshman football players as a result from a locker room incident after the loss to South Carolina last week. Denver Harris, P.J. Williams, and Chris Marshall, all part of that illustrious number 1 class, all suspended.
Are you going to say why?
Well, we'll get on that, but how bad are things in College Station in your opinion?
Well, if you're smoking weed in the locker room after a loss at South Carolina, I mean, then things are pretty bad. But also, like, that's your own fault, Jimbo.
Who hasn't, right? I mean, come on.
Almost every other team, besides Michigan 2007 for the App State game, it's almost every other, and my high school team. Like, that's every other team has not done that. It's Jimbo's fault, though. This all goes back to Jimbo because you recruit. I'm not talking about just from the coaching standpoint. You recruit a kid named Denver Harris. You think he's not going to bring drugs into your team? I mean, that's just as simple as you can get. I think that, like, first off, I love the fact that you didn't show his Cracker Barrel sweatshirt that he was wearing from a week ago, because that was incredible. No, things are really bad. I joked about this earlier this week about, like, maybe the Biden administration needs to look into doing some sort of like, what do you call it? Like Jimbo Fisher contract, like cancellation, like they did with the student loan debt, because this is like they what like blows my mind is there was no reason to re-up his contract. He already had 75 million guaranteed, and they were like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's do this. Sorry, screw it. Like, let's do this. Like, we're gonna like double down. And so it's been like this weird marriage where each side has continued to almost like make equal bad decisions as the other one. But Jimbo now, man, things are really bad. Because I don't like, what do you do next? You have to win 11 games next year at a minimum and beat someone of significance. You got to go, like, you have to do something he hasn't done before, like, all in the same season. Oh my God, this picture.
Yeah, for those not watching the video, we found the picture of his sweatshirt from a week ago, and it literally
looks like we were ahead of them. How did they see us? They ain't seen us before them.
It looks like something your grandpa would wear at the Cracker Barrel. That's absolutely what that looks like.
How quickly do you think, like how quickly do you think Jimbo would accuse that little golf tee game at Cracker Barrel of being rigged after he loses it to like his 13-year-old grandson?
Yeah, what was that game called?
The worst. I never figured out how to win it.
It was always like, if you leave 6 or more, then you're an ignoramus. And I asked my mom, like, what does that mean? And then it was years later that I was like, ignoramus? Like, you teaching little kids what that word is?
And what the hell is chitlins?
Yeah. All right, last one on our SEC or our headlines. The ESPN writers revealed their Heisman favorites at this point. Hendon Hooker is number 1 on their list. C.J. Stroud from Ohio State, number 2. Bryce Young still coming in strong at number 3.
Wow.
Caleb Williams at USC, number 4, and Blake Corum, the Michigan running back, number 5. So 2 SEC guys there. Still kind of looking like we could be poised for a rematch in the SEC title game between Bryce Young and Hendon Hooker. But of all the guys in the SEC, are those kind of the 2 you would put right there if you were making a top 5?
Yeah, I think those 2 are the most deserving. I think it's hard to say. I mean, you watch this Bama team. I don't think I said it last year, and I'll say it again. I think this is an 8-4 team without Bryce. I think that's how bad they are without that kid at quarterback. He's just like a wizard back there. But Hendon Hooker absolutely deserves to be number 1. Very surprised that Max Duggan didn't crack the top 5. That's almost impossible to do. I don't understand how that's possible. But yeah, I think. Sorry, these AirPods are running out of battery, so I'm fidgeting over here. No, I think that Hooker deserves to be number 1. I'm not surprised at CJ Stroud because he's put up a lot of like good numbers as well. But yeah, I think like it's. I always hate this because I feel like Hendon Hooker deserves to win the Heisman today and has all season and his performance and he had a Heisman moment against Alabama. He could argue he's had other Heisman moments this season just because of how dominant he's been with that offense. I mean, where's that offense without him? Like, and he's done it for 2 straight years and gone on. He was largely unnoticed until like the summer. But I think the way the Heisman is, and it kind of frustrates me. It's like, it's a waste of time to even talk about right now because it's a what have you done for me lately thing. If Hendon Hooker doesn't make the SEC championship, he won't win. Like, so he has to go beat Bama and Georgia.
Yeah, if he doesn't beat Georgia in 2 weeks, unfortunately, he's going to be out. And that sucks. Like, that's stupid to put that kind of pressure on him, but that's what it is. I mean, Joe Burrow was having a nice year in 2019, but when he went to Tuscaloosa, it was like, beat Bama. If you don't beat Bama, you're winning the Heisman. And he did.
Leonard Fournette had the best odds out of any player in the last like 20-something years, and then goes to Bama and has like a tough game against the best, the best defense in the country, the best front seven. And then who ends up winning it? The guy who is getting like 45 carries a game. It's kind of sucks, but like, whatever, I like to beat Bama and beat Georgia in the same season is a very difficult thing to do. I'm not saying he can't do it because he absolutely can, but that sucks if that's like the benchmark. And meanwhile, CJ Stroud's up here just putting up video game numbers against Iowa, and we're pretending that's a tough thing to do.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Mac Jones beats Vanderbilt with nobody in the stands, and he wins.
Shut up.
Hold it right there. We're going to get into previewing the games this week here on Locked On SEC. But first, want to remind you about our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for a small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. You just go to LinkedIn Jobs, you add your purple hiring frame to the LinkedIn profile. That'll spread the word that you're hiring. They offer simple tools like screening questions, make it easy for you to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you would like to interview and hire. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality candidates versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs, they help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Continuing on with our buddy Chris Marler from the College Football Uncensored podcast. And Marler, already week 9 here in the SEC, and we got some interesting games to get into this weekend. So figured we'd jump into discussing a few of them. And look, I think there's really no duds in this week. I mean, maybe Mizzou, South Carolina. So maybe we'll start with that one. But 3:00 Central, 4 Eastern on the SEC Network. It'll be 3-4 Mizzou. They just picked up their first win in the conference against Vandy a week ago, going to South Carolina, riding high, man. Sandstorm was rocking. They take the opening kickoff back for a touchdown against A&M. Got a little hairy there in the end, didn't get the onside kick, and made it a little closer than it needed to be. But South Carolina, 5-2 and rolling. If they win this one, Shane Beamer's raising that bar.
Yeah, and that's not something I thought was going to happen, man. I think looking at what he's been able to do this early, I thought he had screwed himself from getting 6 wins a year ago and getting to a bowl game because of where you're setting the bar. So that's, it's like I've said, it's the Arkansas of the East. No, but there's not anybody that's pulling against South Carolina. You have this little big league situation where this 12-year-old is running a football program in the SEC, and he's doing a hell of a job with it. So I think I'll say this. I'm not crapping on South Carolina at all because I absolutely love this. I've said it 1,000 times. My family lives in Columbia. Williams-Brice is a special place, especially on Fair Week, State Fair Week. Did you see how much better the fair looked this year? I thought I was looking at London for a second, which just shows you how unclassy I am. But like watching that kind of unfold, was that the worst kickoff return?
It was awkward. It was
awkward, right?
It was awkward is the best way to describe it, but not as awkward as A&M's offensive line. So
God,
that was a problem. But look, Luther Burden, we'll just say for Mizzou, they got him involved a little bit more. It feels like week by week they get him a little bit more involved. He was big in their win over Vandy. I just think South Carolina, the way they run the football with Marshawn Lloyd, and the defense is playing pretty good. I think South Carolina wins. They're favored by 4. You think Gamecocks cover?
Hammer that. Yeah, I think they definitely do. The Luther Burden thing is so weird. It's just so weird. They don't give him the ball on every play because they don't have an answer for anything on offense. But I will say this, and this is something that I was guilty of, and I think a lot of people were too. This Missouri defense is one of the best defenses in the SEC. They've been really good all season long, and people have not really paid attention to it and kind of just assumed when they played Georgia, it was all Georgia's struggles. And you kind of remove yourself from that like a couple weeks later. And sure, the offense sucks. I mean, you have like what you did against Vanderbilt, a 3-point win against Vanderbilt. It's not good, but on the road, yeah. But this is a big test for South Carolina in terms of where they are from a maturity standpoint too.
Speaking of offenses that suck, we go to Auburn, Alabama, where they will be hosting Arkansas. Now, the Razorbacks got their groove back a little bit. They had KJ Jefferson. They got the big win at BYU, putting up like 50-plus points. To me, for Arkansas to kind of, they've stumbled here, but they still believe in Sam Pittman. This is one, like, they can still finish the season strong. They still play LSU. They still got some tough games. But Arkansas can really, this could be the thing that gets them right. You got to go win this one at Auburn. And if you're Auburn, man, this season's gone sideways. This would be a nice feather in the cap of Brian Harsin if he could pull off a win. But where are you with Arkansas at Auburn, 11 a.m. Central on SEC Network? Razorbacks a 3.5-point road favorite.
So I think there's a lot of lines out here this week that Vegas is just begging you to take. We'll get into one of them later that I think is an absolute trap. This is not one of them. Take Arkansas, take them big. I think that Sam Pittman, he kind of gets what Brian Harsin doesn't, and that is, you, Sam. Yeah, you. I think he kind of gets what Auburn doesn't, and that is finishing games and just the way you win, how important that is. And like Auburn has been so bad in the second half. Now, the one thing is, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I mean, Auburn has dominated this series. They won like 5 or 6 in a row in this series. Even last year, they had a double-digit win against Arkansas. And so they're at home. You're coming off a bye. I like Arkansas to cover in this game. I think KJ Jefferson, I think that they are going to be too much for Auburn, especially against that defense that, like, Auburn hasn't completely rolled over yet. But I don't think that the strength of Auburn's offense, if there is one, versus the weakness of Arkansas's defense, I don't think they're going to exploit that because it's the pass defense, and Auburn isn't a great passing team.
One other one I want to squeeze in here because I want to save the 2 night games for later. The afternoon game, 3:30 Eastern on CBS. It is Florida. It is Georgia. It is the cocktail party in Jacksonville. And Georgia, 22.5-point favorites. Line is big. Look, we've seen some life from Florida's offense, certainly in the Tennessee game against LSU. They had some moments of some big explosive plays. Defense was really bad against LSU. But Georgia's offense has been kind of up and down. They looked great at times. They looked okay at times. Where are we with the old cocktail party down in Jacksonville?
Man, Kirby hates these people. He hates these people. I'm going. I'm drunk. I'm drunk already just talking about this game. Yeah, it's my first time ever going as a lifelong resident of the state of Georgia, which seems like a little bit of a crime. But no, it should be fun. I think you saw it last year where Georgia is the dominant team, but still the game is close for whatever reason early on. I don't really expect to see that. It'll be interesting to see what Florida tries to do offensively. I think we're going to see kind of what has kind of happened a lot in these Kirby Smart games, which is kind of a slow start. Like kind of because like Kirby knows there's gonna be 60 minutes, and he also knows that Florida can't hang with them for 60 minutes. They probably can't hang with them for 30 minutes, like you saw last year. I expect Georgia to impose their will and play. I expect them to play very vanilla and just take Florida's will very early on. I think they're gonna run the football down their throat. I think they're gonna do you won't see anything that's gonna be you want put on tape because you have Tennessee the following week. And I think that it'll be I don't know if they'll cover. It'll be a very methodical, imposing win.
I like it. It's a lot of points, and I'm wondering if maybe Florida could pull off a late score for a backdoor cover. That's what would concern me. But look, I think Florida can hang for a while. I think the offense, if they can score some points, I think they could keep it close for a bit.
Sure.
Hey, maybe I just watched that Kent State game on replay one too many.
Why would you? You know what's gonna be funny is I can't wait to see what the line is, and it's probably already out for next week. But people that think that whole Tennessee Georgia game, just a brief look ahead. Anybody that thinks that Tennessee Georgia game is going to be this like Tennessee's offense versus Georgia's defense, and it will be that to an extent. the people that are running Todd Monken and his incredible creativity on offense, I feel bad for you because what you're going to see in 2 weeks in Athens is going to be so damn fun to watch on offense on both sides. On both sides, Georgia hasn't had to show any of that since the Oregon game, and they will pull that script back out, I think, for the Tennessee game.
Yeah, and they finally got Eric Gilbert involved. What was the last game they played? So another wrinkle to the offense. All right, we're going to talk more about the SEC games of Week 9 here with Chris Marler in just a second. But want to remind you about our friends over at SweatBlock. We told you about how they're saving sweaters like us around the country. A lot of us have been there, embarrassing sweat at a party, wearing a dress shirt, wearing a polo, whatever it is, at a football game, at a tailgate. And you got the sweat stains, you are pitting, my friend. And SweatBlock can be the one that can help you. They give you the confidence to wear what you want without embarrassing underarm sweat. The SweatBlock wipes, they were featured and tested on the Rachel Ray show by firefighters. They showed it worked. If you or somebody you love is experiencing embarrassing sweat or odor, you need to go try out SweatBlock. You can save 20% with our promo code Locked On when you go to their website, sweatblock.com. They're also available on Amazon. Again, if you're anybody out there, if you or someone you know has suffered from excessive sweating, you need to go try out SweatBlock. They got the wipes, they got the underarm deodorant, they got everything up there at the website. You can try. Again, go use our promo code Locked On. You'll get 20% off at sweatblock.com and check them out on Amazon. It is SweatBlock. One more segment with our buddy Chris Marler from the College Football Uncensored podcast. And Marler, as we look ahead to the rest of the games here, SEC Week 9, a couple of tough tests into evening 6:30 Central on the SEC Network. We finally head back to College Station, where it feels like A&M hasn't been in about 2 months. But they will host number 15 Ole Miss. Ole Miss finally getting humbled, playing in a tough environment in Baton Rouge. They had a great first half. They had a terrible second half where they got shut out, but still a really good team, led by Quinshon Judkins, who's one of the best running backs in the SEC. Zach Evans was out last week. Sounds like he could be back. The Aggies are a total mess. Ole Miss, a 2.5-point road favorite.
Yeah, so this has kind of become the MO for Ole Miss under Kiffin this year. And that is these really great starts. It was just a byproduct of, maybe they're overlooking Tulsa in the second half because you have Kentucky next week. And then you see they get out to this great start against Kentucky. And, they did everything they could to lose that game in the second half and didn't score a lot of points in. This has become who they are. This is the identity of his offense is it's like let's get out to a great start. And then, oh, look, squirrel. And then just all of a sudden, all of your attention is gone. And they've been bad in the second half of games this year, just flat out. And none as bad as they were a week ago, right? You take a lead in Death Valley and you get boat raced by LSU. And, I think that said a lot about who LSU was. I think it said a lot about Death Valley in general. Because it's going in there being a favorite is something that I think they took personally. And you saw it, play out that way. But I think that also looking at them going to College Station, Vegas knows something. There's zero reason why they would only be favored by 2.5 points against a really, really bad Texas A&M team, especially a Texas A&M team that's probably going to be starting a freshman quarterback with Connor Wigman at this point moving forward because of how bad Haynes King has been.
Well, but let's be fair. Like, if we're just looking at scores, they lost by 3 to App State. They lost by 4 at Bama. They had the goal line play. They made it close to South Carolina. I know they needed the onside kick to do so. Mississippi State was really the only one that wasn't close. So of their 4 losses, 3 of them by 1 score or less.
Who was the first one you brought up?
Well, Appalachian State.
Okay, and you brought up the Bama one when Bama had their backup quarterback in who had 3 turnovers.
Yeah, and A&M had a first and goal at the 1-yard line and threw a ball out of bounds. I mean, it's what they did. They run the football. Maybe they win that game. So,
this is the first game they've had at home since I think the Miami game.
That's what I brought up. Yeah, they've been road warriors.
Well, I don't know if that's the case. I wouldn't call them road warriors for sure. I think Ole Miss wins, but I think if I probably wouldn't touch this game betting wise because the 2.5, you're just begging people to bet on Ole Miss. And how does Ole Miss look getting up off the mat? And here's the other thing: how does Ole Miss look getting up off the mat after just a demoralizing loss to what do you call it, to Ole Miss. I'm sorry, to LSU. How do they look getting off the map off that? Having Bama next week. I will say, and I haven't checked in these numbers in a while, so I'm going to be speaking out of ignorance here, which is not anything new. I'm sure some of your listeners will understand that. But like, I do think that the Texas A&M run defense has been the weakness of this team in a lot of ways. Like, well, at least on the defense. So that feeds into the strength for Ole Miss. But I would, if I'm betting on this, I'm taking Ole Miss, whatever their first half line is, hammering that because this is a very slow starting Texas A&M team.
Yeah, if Zach Evans is back with Judkins, there's no reason why Jackson Dart needs to throw a pass. Just run.
Isn't that crazy in a Kiffin offense?
Yeah, win the game. The big night game, and we've kind of hit on a little bit, but it is number 19 Kentucky at number 3 Tennessee, 6 o'clock Central, 7 Eastern on ESPN from Neyland Stadium. By the way, is Tennessee playing nothing but home games? Good Lord.
Yeah.
The Vols favored by 12.5. I know you were a seller on Kentucky for much of this season. They've had some nice wins as of late. I wonder if they give Will Levis time and Chris Rodriguez runs the ball well like he has been, I think Kentucky's going to be in this game.
I think they're going to be in this game regardless because this is arguably Kentucky's biggest game. You can talk all you want about Louisville and all that kind of stuff, but especially when Louisville's down and you know that that's probably going to be a win for you. This is a huge game. This is a hated rivalry. At least that's what I gather on Twitter. I mean, these teams and it's very much a, like somebody trying to, like, you just putting your hand out on your little brother and then just swinging wildly trying to hit you. It has that feeling from a big brother, little brother standpoint from Tennessee and Kentucky. Again, I should have looked it up beforehand.
Who's the big brother? Who's the little brother?
Tennessee's the big brother.
Okay.
All time.
You know what the score was last time they went to Knoxville, right?
Didn't they beat their ass like 51-20?
34-7. Jared Garantano.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what Garantano threw like 8. Yeah, but that's also the first time they had beat him in Knoxville since like 1985.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, like, we were still going to the moon and stuff, like, at that point, like, and it was like a big deal. Like the whole country was like, we're going to the moon. That's how far it was away. Anyway, I have to get my digs in at NASA. You know that, brother. I think that what the hell is going on? So again, I wish I would have looked this up beforehand, but that would have been professional, and that's not who I am. But I think that whatever the first half line is, hammer Tennessee, because Tennessee is the best first half scoring offense in the country. Probably even better than Ohio State at this point. You saw it last week. They put up 52 in the first half. And I know they were playing Tennessee Martin, but they have been great in the first half of games. Kentucky's been the exact opposite. That Mississippi State game is the first time that what they did against Mississippi State. The only thing that was good about that was that they just limited Mississippi State from scoring. They still only put up 3 points in the first half of that game. It is one of the worst first half scoring offenses in the country. I believe it is the worst first half scoring offense in all of FBS, in Power 5 against other Power 5 programs. Tennessee early. I think, listen, it's a special Tennessee team. It really is. And I don't think they're going to be phased by Kentucky. I think that they know what's at stake. And I think that they have a guy at quarterback who he does the opposite of what Will Levis does. And that is, Will Levis will be sick, and he is better physically. He's more physically talented than Hendon Hooker, but Hendon Hooker doesn't turn the ball over. He just doesn't. And Will Levis does that. So does Chris Rodriguez. And I think that'll be the difference in the game.
I think you kind of hit on something, though. Kentucky
I probably did. I'm pretty smart.
They put up a bulk of their points in the second half against Mississippi State. They did the same thing against Ole Miss. Really should have had a go-ahead score against Ole Miss. Second half against Florida. So maybe it is Kentucky's a second half team. And so maybe if Tennessee jumps up to an early lead, are they trying to protect it? We already saw in the Florida game where they got, hey, we got a big lead. We're good.
Right.
Oh, wait, Florida's still scoring.
Begun.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. To me, it's 12.5 is a lot of points. I could see Tennessee still winning by 10 and Kentucky covering, but we'll see. I'll make an official pick on that one Friday. Real quick before we let you go, Marler.
Just bet the first half.
Give me an early thought on LSU Alabama next week, which as of now appears to be the game for SEC West supremacy.
Which it should be, right? That's that game. It's so weird watching this be a night game on ESPN. and not CBS. And for a decade, I always say this. There's a rap lyric from now I can't even think of the song because it's been a minute since I've had to quote it. Frick. What is the name? I shouldn't have said frick. That's going to take away from all my street cred. But the line is, he says, "Call me what you want, but don't call me for fronting." And he's like, this is like a man. Every single person on these rosters, like, this is big boy football. The road to the SEC West, road to Atlanta, goes through either Baton Rouge or Tuscaloosa. It seems like every year, and I love this game because it's like I hated it when it was like. I mean, you've been there. This is a throw-up game. You're like, oh, this is awful. This is awful. It's the fourth quarter. It's 13-10. You're just playing like a Big Ten game. It's just miserable for 4 quarters, but it's a great rivalry. I had the opportunity to go, man, and I turned it down because I'm going to be in Athens instead for the Tennessee-Georgia game, covering that. And I'm a little bit disappointed because I wanted to go, talk shit to you in person. But I will tell you this: as worried as I am about Jaden Daniels, and as worried as I am about Bama and their mental makeup and Nick Saban and all that kind of stuff. The one thing I'm not worried about, Gordy?
Winning in Baton Rouge, because Alabama does it a lot.
Yeah. Do you know how many losses Bama has had in Baton Rouge since 1957?
It's only a few.
5. 2 of those came at the hands of Nick Saban.
Well, yeah, but you're talking about days when we were going to the moon still.
We weren't even going we were pretending to go to the moon. That wasn't even the real moon.
We call that a callback.
That's good.
But look at the games in Baton Rouge for the last 10 years plus. They're all almost all of them are close. There's been 1 or 2, crooked scores, but they're all, majority are decided by 1 score or less. So again, like, this is one, I think, and when the early line came out, I saw Bama Brown, a 2-touchdown favorite.
I haven't seen it.
I'm going, this is going to come down. Yeah. Just because
Bama on the road. Yeah. I'll take hammer LSU.
Yeah. Look, it's going to be fun. We'll spend next week. We'll spend a lot of time next week getting into it and previewing it. But how cool is it that really next week could decide the SEC East rep and the SEC West rep? And it's just funny because we said before the season, it was overwhelmingly Alabama, Georgia. And here we are with a month plus to go in the season. And we're literally talking about, it could be LSU. It could be Tennessee. It's fun.
It honestly is. And the parity in this has been so much more fun this year. And I think, and people are still sleeping on LSU. And I think if they beat Bama, and they can, this team is built to beat Alabama, especially the way Alabama's played. I wouldn't be surprised. And I think what you've seen out of Brian Kelly in year 1, it's just such a testament to who this program is, because, now you look at the Tennessee game and you're like, okay, well, that's Tennessee, because Tennessee is one of the best teams in offense in the country. They put it on us early. But with LSU now, you're like, oh man, they're down 14 early on, 17-3, and they just come back. I think it says a lot about the program, and it makes me happy, even though, as somebody that's been a lifelong Bama fan, I love Baton Rouge. I love the people of Baton Rouge. I love LSU. It should be a lot of fun. It should be a great game.
And
Bama by 100.
One important note. Quarterbacks who've given Saban defenses fits in the past are dual threat quarterbacks.
Yeah.
The quarterbacks
and
who
also,
can run their legs.
My bad.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I couldn't hear you.
I was just going to say, I mean, like Johnny Manziel, who was the dude at Utah? I'm just trying to think of, even Bo Wallace ran a little bit. I mean, like, you just have to be able to show your legs are a threat. And it's a lot of these guys come out of position. And, do you put a linebacker and say, go follow him wherever he goes? It's going to be a challenge. Tennessee was up to the challenge. They and keep in mind, some things went in Tennessee's favor for that game to go so crooked. If LSU comes out and fumbles the opening kickoff, Bama by 100. But,
right.
I'm just saying, like, Jaden Daniels has the skills that could give Saban's defense some problems.
Yeah, gone are the days of the whole thing about, it takes a Heisman Trophy winner or some crazy game from Steven Garcia to beat Bama. Now it's like, it's a Heisman Trophy winner, a crazy game, or some white kid that went to 3 JUCOs and just to get his math credits up before we go back to Athens. So there you go.
Hey, Hudson Card nearly pulled it off. So
yeah, 4-star quarterback, like top 6 in the country coming out of high school. Whatever, it's fine.
Yes, it was not Quinn Ewers. If Quinn Ewers doesn't get hurt, bud,
I'm not doing this because it's right, and I don't want to argue it.
They just remind me of Colt McCoy. If Colt don't get hurt, Texas wins that title game. He is Chris Marler. College Football Uncensored podcast. Remind listeners where they can find you.
Yeah, so College Football Uncensored podcast. We have new shows coming out every Sunday and Wednesday, and so we should be the same this week, obviously. And then also on Twitter at Vern Funquist, and that's about it.
Oh, I just got that. He is Chris Marler. Thanks so much for the time, man. Always appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again next week.
All right, man. I'll see you then.
All right, man. That's Chris Marler from the College Football Uncensored podcast. That's going to do it for this edition of a Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. For your next listen, go check out the I'm choked up. Go check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available in the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Talk to you guys tomorrow.